What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Mile High Hockey. So much to unpack from a busy Avalanche weekend. Drew, we kind of talked about it on Friday. Oh, they're finally going to lose in regulation. Well, they did to the Boston Bruins, and then they took the New Jersey Devils to overtime, and that had another familiar ending, a frustrating finish in OT for the Avs. Drew, I got to start there. I mean, this season, they have left 4 points on the table. I know you're not a big shootout guy, but their inability to win an OT in the shootout, are these going to be points that eventually haunt the Avalanche down the stretch in March and April?
It kind of feels like it might. Honestly, it's kind of perplexing because it kind of stems to me a little bit like the problems with the power play. There's so much offensive firepower on this team. It's hard to fathom how you could be in a 3-on-3 situation in overtime with all this talent and all this speed and firepower and struggle the way they do. It kind of defies logic. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if you kind of look a little bit deeper and say, okay, well, why is this happening? You could see, well, some of the same problems that are plaguing them even at 5-on-5, I think, are coming to fruition in overtime. They're sloppy with the puck, they mismanagement, and every mistake seems to end up in the back of the net. And so it's happening in overtime. It's happening 5-on-5. It's happening even on the power play. So it's just these little things that are happening for this team are kind of costing them. And I think you're right. I think it could get to a point here with the way the Central Division is probably going to play out throughout the season that these lost points may end up costing them in the seeding. Now, who knows? It's early on. They can easily go on a huge run and make them all back. But it could get a little bit dicey. And we may look back in April and say, oh, yeah, you remember those couple games in October when they went to overtime against Boston or against New Jersey and, Dallas and stuff like that, where these points do end up costing you?
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. And it was funny because Jared Bednar was asked post-game about, hey, you guys are now 0-4 in overtime. And Jared's like one of the nicest dudes on earth, but he even kind of snapped at the reporter of like, well, we're not 0-4 in overtime. We're 0-2 in overtime,
right.
0-2 on the shootout. And that sort of told me, Drew, of like, oh, yeah, Jared, who rarely snaps at people, snaps at reporters, that is kind of the code for like, he's as frustrated as this as the fans are because, yes, we can have all these great stats of, oh, you've only had one loss in regulation, this and that. But you're right, man. Like if they and the Stars and the Jets or the Blues or the Mammoth or whoever are in this kind of race at the end of the year, there's a reason Jared Bednar kind of got upset with the reporter because he knows that they're just leaving points out there left and right.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we basically talked about since the beginning of the season, that night in and night out, every game has a certain importance to it. In fact, probably a high importance, because we all know at the end of the day, this team does not want to be sitting there on the road in a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup playoffs like they were last year. So every point is going to matter. And we just look at the way the Central Division race is playing out. I mean, this division maybe is even better than we thought it was going to be. I mean, look at Utah.
Utah's better than I realized. There's no doubt about that.
I know, it's incredible. I mean, I think they've won 8 in a row at this point. I mean, they're leading the division, but you got to figure out a way to make things happen. You got to be better in overtime. Maybe it's split things up. I didn't really like the fact on Sunday going with Nathan MacKinnon and Marty Necas. I like those two together on the first line. Maybe in overtime, not so much. Maybe you want to get more of an artillery like in with Nathan MacKinnon. Maybe try Val with Nate, see how that plays out. I just think you got to do something. You can't just kind of keep running out the same thing over and over again when you keep getting the same result. That's just the definition of insanity. You've got to try to mix things up a little bit. I know that Bednar's confident in his guys, but you got to do things a little bit different if you want a different result.
Yeah, I'm a huge Nathan MacKinnon fan. Everyone knows that. But at the end of the day, he looks like he doesn't care very much about overtime, which is kind of fascinating from one of the best players in the NHL, especially when, if they had won 2 of these games, you and I'd be sitting here going, whatever, they're 2-2, but they've lost 4. I mean, the Avs have played 10 games and they've lost 4 in OT or the shootout. Let's talk about Boston and then we'll get to New Jersey. What was frustrating about the Boston game to me, Drew, is, and the broadcast was talking about, the Bruins came out with like no energy whatsoever. They were super duper flat. The Avs go up 1-0, MacKinnon to Lehkonen. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's 2-1 Boston. Avs couldn't solve Swayman the rest of the game until there was 20 seconds left, too little, too late. What was the biggest takeaway from the Bruins game, other than the fact that it was like Boston was maybe gifting you 2 points and you couldn't take advantage of it? That was a head scratcher.
I got to be honest, like for me, it kind of started before the game, and I'm not usually somebody who criticizes a lot of what Jared Bednar does, but I thought it was a really curious decision going up against a bad Boston team, a team you just saw less than a week ago, knowing full well that they're not a good offensive-minded team, knowing that you had the second game of back-to-back on Sunday against New Jersey. I thought it was a very curious decision to start Scott Wedgwood in goal. Now, maybe the logic of it was because you just pulled him against Carolina the game before. You didn't want to shake his confidence or anything like that. But to me, that was a perfect game where you want to start your young guy. Start Trent Miner against a lesser opponent in the Boston Bruins, and then you start your guy, your top guy in this case, is Scott Wedgwood against a much better New Jersey hockey team. To me, the whole thing just didn't make sense. But then you get into the game, and you're right. I mean, they kept mentioning on the broadcast, that was about as sleepy as a start I've seen from a team. And I mean, I can't even remember how long it's been since that happened. I mean, that's a game where you've got to put your foot on their throat and go up 2-0, 3-0 early on in that game, because if you give a bad team life, more often than not, they're going to take advantage of it. And it was honestly for me a bummer of a weekend because they played well. They played two pretty darn decent or good even hockey games over those two games and didn't come away with a regulation win in either one of them. So it was frustrating to watch that, knowing full well, like, hey, you played two pretty darn good games, and yet you didn't get the full 4 points that you probably should have gotten had you maybe converted on the power play. I know we keep talking about it, we keep being the dead horse on it, but it's true. You're 4 for 39 at this point. The power play is killing this team right now, and I think that was a big reason why they lost that game on Saturday and as well on Sunday.
Yeah, and then on Sunday against the Devils, you get down 2-0. You fight back to make it 2-2. You scrap one out. Brock Nelson finally feeling like he had a big moment to make it 3-3. And then in overtime, which we've harped on a little bit, like, you know, the puck should be out of the zone. And next thing you know, it's in the back of the Avalanche's net. I get it. Like getting a point on the road when you had this 22-hour back-to-back, which is apparently the bare minimum in the NHL. But yeah, you summed it up. It was a frustrating weekend. Like at some point, the Avalanche have to find a way to turn 1 point into 2 points. That's what they haven't been able to do thus far. And it was good to see a guy like Nelson get a big goal. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's like, can we finish one of these? Like one time, can we finish one of these? And honestly, it's still what, October 28th, and it feels a little Groundhog Day right now when these guys are playing extra time.
A little bit, but the I guess the bright side for me is they still only have one loss in regulation. Like we're kind of talking about all these like little negative things that are kind of piling up, and yet this team is still in a really good position. That to me is the encouraging part, where it's like, okay, a couple easy fixes here and there, and you're in great shape again. Everything is going to kind of go according to plan. But going back to Sunday, the big takeaway for me in that game, honestly, Will, was that the second line finally got going. Yeah. And we talked about it a little bit on Friday, kind of towards the end of the show, talking about Gabe Landeskog and where his role and kind of fits into this roster right now, the way it's currently constructed. And I was honestly pretty glad to see that they did decide to demote him to that third line, because I feel like in this point in his career, and I thought this going back to the playoff series last year, I thought when Gabe came back, he was probably more likely than not going to be a third liner on this team that was going to put him in the best position to be successful. And I think we saw on Sunday that it kind of came to fruition, not only for him, but that second line as well. I thought Gabe's best game was on Sunday playing on that third line. I thought that second line really showed some things. Val was great. Brock Nelson finally got it going. Victor Olofsson looked good on that second line while he was there. They finished it with Ross Colton, which I guess is what they're going to do tonight as well. So there were pieces there where you're saying, okay, these are things to build on. Maybe we finally starting to get some line combinations where we can start to see some more success, because you can't just rely night in and night out on that top line. They're going to be great more often than not, but there's nights they're not going to be great. You need the second and third lines to pick up the slack and get the scoring going if you want to make some sort of a deep run.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And kudos to Jared Bednar, because we all want Gabe Landeskog to be the good story, right? But we also want him to play good hockey, and maybe the third line is more suited for his skill set at this point in his career. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Let's finish with tonight. You mentioned it. I think the headline of the day, Drew, is that Mackenzie Blackwood is going to back up Scott Wedgwood. I think we'd all love to see Mackenzie actually get into a game at this point in time, but in the same breath, it's good that that he's healthy enough that you can dress him as the backup. And if something goes wrong, we're knocking on wood, it doesn't, that he can play. This does feel like kind of the last missing piece for this Avalanche team of okay, yes, it's only been 10, 11 games, whatever it is, but Mackenzie Blackwood is officially back in the fold, if you will.
Yeah, and I think it's important because we started to kind of see the shine wear off a little bit on Scott Wedgwood the last 3-4 games where, he was giving up basically 1 goal a game for his first 5 starts. And then you've seen over the last couple games where 2, 3, 4 goals night in and night out. Listen, Scott Wedgwood is a great story. What he did to get this team out of the start that he did was fantastic. But at the end of the day, he's a backup for a reason. He's a very good backup. You want him in that role. So for me, it's really encouraging that you are going to get Mackenzie Blackwood tonight, even though I would prefer he be between the pipes against his old team. It's at least encouraging that, guess what? He's suited up. He's going to be the backup. I would anticipate he's probably back in the lineup on Friday afternoon, by the way. That's a weird thing. They got a day game on Halloween in Vegas, which is so bizarre. I don't even know.
I guess we'll be doing a preview podcast.
Actually, yeah, I did think about it. We kind of will. That's kind of fun now that I think about it. But now I would anticipate Black will be back in the net on Friday night. And, I'll be curious because this is a big game tonight. New Jersey, I don't know how many people get to watch the Devils on the Eastern Conference, stuff like that. But watching that game on Sunday, that is a very, very good New Jersey team. And we talked, last week about a possible cup preview against Carolina. Don't sleep on Jersey. That's a team that could be there at the end if they can stay healthy. So this is going to be a really fun game tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully Wedgwood can bounce back and keep the puck out of the net and just, man, let's get the stinking power play going. Get a goal, even 2 goals early on in this game on the power play tonight. Get this thing going because we can't keep coming in and talking about, another 0 for night. Once again, it's just it's killing them right now. They got to get it going.
Well, Avs and Devils in the Stanley Cup final brings back good memories. So we will keep our fingers crossed that happens again in 2026. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will see you on Friday again for a Halloween preview show. Avs and Golden Knights on Friday afternoon. He's Drew. I'm Will. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, comment, do all the fun things on YouTube, and we'll catch you in a few days.